And he said, JP, I have an extra room in my house. We'll get some of our biker mamas to help take care of your son while you go to work.
Motorcycles.
Yes.
What do you enjoy about them?
Motorcycles give a certain amount of freedom to you. When you sit on a motorcycle and you take off, it's you, the power beneath you, and an open road. There's nothing around you. So in a motorized vehicle, it's as close as you could get to the planet and being grounded. Also, when you're a motorcycle and the air is blowing in your face and you see nature all around you, and you just realize that we are on an incredible, magical planet. And I feel that way every time I ride my motorcycle, whether it's for a short distance or a long distance.
How many do you have, and what are some of your favorites?
I have quite a few motorcycles. Right here at this house, I have 3 of them. My favorite is probably my rigid frame. I have a rigid frame, kind of a low rider, you might call it. It's one of my favorite. I think my second favorite would probably be one of my Indian motorcycles or one of my custom Harleys.
And I understand you have a pretty good deal where you're given a new Indian every 6 months or
Yeah,
so,
it's
right?
really cool. I get to ride a new Indian motorcycle every 6 months. They train them out for me. I rode it in Sturgis a couple of years ago when the new company took over and they made the new Indians, and it was such a beautiful, nice motorcycle that I decided that this is just nothing but cool. They said, would you ride it all the time? We gave you one. I said, sure, why not? You know, and they did, so I ride it quite a bit.
So what led to your son-in-law, Jesse James, making a custom bike for you?
Well, Jesse, obviously my son-in-law, is the best motorcycle maker in the world, and he couldn't possibly have me not have a custom motorcycle, so they made me a custom motorcycle, which, by the way, is right now being tweaked out in his shop right now.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, Jesse's super cool.
Hell's Angels. Explain how, way back when, you wound up part of them.
Right. Well, back in my early 20s, I was kind of down and out. Actually, I was homeless. I had a friend, Lee Meyer. Lee and I went to junior high school together, and kept in touch after I got out of the Navy. And I was homeless and ran across Lee, and he found out about it. And he said, JP, I have an extra room in my house. You're coming to live with me. I know you're working, so no problem. We'll get some of our biker mamas to help take care of your son while you go to work. And it was a community of Hell's Angels and Satan's slaves in the San Fernando Valley at the time. So I would go riding with those guys all the time. They helped me put together an old 1938 motorcycle, kind of a flathead, which is an old style engine, by the way, on motorcycles. And I rode with them. It was pretty cool. They were good guys. Now, they were different in those days. Completely different. A lot of people looked at them as bullies and drug dealers, and maybe some of them were bullies and drug dealers. They were, okay? But today's Hell's Angels are a lot different. I was just with them 2 weeks ago on a toy drive. They went out and raised money and took their own money and bought toys for children whose parent or parents are in jail, and went and delivered them. It's a whole new organization. They're still badasses. You don't want to mess with these guys, right? But they won't mess with you. I'm sure there's an exception somewhere in the world of a few bullies, but very, very few. They're really hardcore bikers. They're cool people. You don't mess with them, they won't mess with you. But they care about others, especially children, and that's a side of Hell's Angels people just don't see.
What were some of the things you saw back then? You mentioned they've changed over the years, but back then, some of the more challenging things that you saw when you were involved?
Well, many, many years ago, and this was going back to the 1960s, okay? It was a little different group. We would hang out, for example, at Griffith Park. People would get in fights. They'd have one group over here, and you don't look at wrong into that group, or they'll come over and, you know, clobber you. I mean, it was a little different scene. It was more of an action fighting type scene, not all the time, but quite a bit. They had, you know, certain rules, regulations that they followed. Someone would agree with, someone wouldn't agree with. I think the one that bikers agreed with was you got on your motorcycle and you ride fast, and they did. It was pretty cool. It was also kind of unique when, and they don't do that much these days, a little bit they do, where there's 100 motorcycles on the road or more. And at that time it was a mixture, mostly Hell's Angels, some Satan's slaves. They got along really, really well. And you're part of a pack going down the highway, and you don't have to be a member. If they liked you, you could ride with them. They liked me. I didn't have to join the club because I couldn't, even if I wanted to in those days. You had to go to church every week. Church, by the way, was a meeting. It wasn't like we go to, you know, church, we crossed out. It was a meeting, and I couldn't do it. I was working at a childless support, so I couldn't do that. But they liked me anyway, so we hung out.